أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على المصطفى محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين واللعنة الدائمة على أعدائهم أجمعين إلى قيام يوم الدين. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. Brothers and sisters in Islam, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. In our last video, we mentioned an interesting story regarding Sahib al-Zaman, may Allah hasten his reappearance, and the first deputy, Uthman ibn Sa'id al-Amri, may Allah bless his soul. The story contained multiple vital points, one of which was that Imam al-Hadi and Imam al-Askari alayhim as-salam had referred Ahmad ibn Ishaq, may Allah bless his soul, to Uthman ibn Sa'id al-Amri, and had told him to acquire the knowledge of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam from Uthman ibn Sa'id al-Amri. They also uttered important words, very precise words, indicating the impeccable trustworthiness and honesty of Uthman ibn Sa'id al-Amri, may Allah bless his soul. Today, we want to look at another personality that took the role of a marja during the days of the apparent imams alayhim salam, and that individual was none other than Zuraarah ibn Ahyun, may Allah bless his soul. Zuraarah was a man that Imam al-Sadiq salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhi loved. He was without doubt an erudite and a man who was very precise in narrating the traditions of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam without changes, without any alteration. We have a lengthy tradition to share tonight, and we want to read this tradition in full because it contains multiple important points. The tradition can be found in the book Ikhtiyar Ma'rifat al-Rijal for Shaykh al-Tusi, may Allah bless his soul. In it, Shaykh al-Tusi mentions a chain of narrators going back to Mufaddal ibn Umar, may Allah bless his soul. Mufaddal says what? Mufaddal, of course, was also very close to Imam al-Sadiq salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi, and he himself took the role of a marja during the days of Ahlul Bayt salamullahi alayhim. Nonetheless, Mufaddal says, سمعت أبا عبد الله عليه السلام يوما ودخل عليه الفيض ابن المختار. He says, one day I heard Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam say a particular word. When did he say that word? He said it when a man called al-Fayd ibn al-Mukhtar entered upon the Imam. فذكر له آية من كتاب الله عز وجل تأولها أبو عبد الله عليه السلام. He says that man, Al-Fayd, mentioned a Quranic verse to Imam al-Sadiq, and this Quranic verse had been explained by Imam al-Sadiq salamullahi alayhi. As you may know, Ahlul Bayt were the living, talking, walking, breathing Quran. Thus, one of their main duties was to explain the Holy Quran, to tell the people, what did Allah mean when He said, for example, قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ أَحَدٌ? What did Allah mean when He said, عَمَّا يَتَسَاءَلُونَ عَنِ النَّبَإِ الْعَظِيمِ, etc. So this man, Al-Fayd ibn al-Mukhtar, mentioned a Quranic verse that Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam had explained. He says, فَقَالَ لَهُ الْفَيْض جعلني الله فداك ما هذا الاختلاف الذي بين شيعتكم. He told him, Al-Fayd said to Imam al-Sadiq, may Allah sacrifice me for you. What is this difference that I see amongst your Shias, amongst your followers? Bear in mind that according to this tradition, according to the context of this tradition, the word Shia here refers to any individual who claims to be a follower of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, whether his claim is actually true or not. The tradition is not referring to the people who are real Shias, the people who were the elite followers of Ahlul Bayt, like Habib bin Mudahir, or Zuraarah bin A'yun, or Mufaddal bin Umar, or Salman, or Abu Dhar. Here the tradition is speaking about who? About any individual who claims to be a follower of Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. Al-Faid had a problem. He was seeing that these so-called Shias, these so-called followers of Imam al-Sadiq were differing. Thus he told the Imam, what is this difference that I see amongst your followers? The Imam said, وَأَيُّ الْإِخْتِلَافِ يَا فَيْض? He told him, what is this difference that you refer to, O Faid? فقال له الفيض إني لأجلس في حلقهم بالكوفة فأكاد أشك في اختلافهم في حديثهم. He told the Imam alayhi salam that sometimes I sit in Al-Kufa amongst your followers as they're sitting in circles, and I hear their traditions. So I hear one individual uttering a particular tradition, then a second individual uttering a tradition that contradicts the first tradition. Then I hear, for example, a third person uttering another tradition that contradicts what I heard previously. So he's telling the Imam alayhi salam, when I sit amongst them in Kufa, I hear them uttering traditions and saying that these are your traditions, the traditions of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. But the problem is, these traditions are contradicting. Then he says, حتى أرجع إلى المفضل فأكاد أشك في اختلافهم في حديثهم حتى أرجع إلى المفضل. He tells him that when I hear this contradiction, when I hear these contradicting narrations, I get to a point where I'm about to doubt, due to this contradiction, due to these contradictions, until, he says, I go back to Mufaddal ibn Umar فيوقفني من ذلك على ما تستريح إليه نفسي ويطمئن إليه قلبي. He says, when I go back to Mufaddal ibn Umar, Mufaddal narrates traditions, the traditions of Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. And when I hear these traditions, I feel at peace. I feel that my soul has reached a state of tranquility. Indeed, that is the effect, the real effect of the real traditions of Ahlul Bayt Salamullah alayhim. The traditions of Ahlul Bayt Salamullah alayhim are impeccable, they're outstanding, they're beautiful. When you hear them or read them, you feel at peace. You feel comforted. Similar to a person who drinks cold water on an extremely hot day as he's extremely thirsty. That's how you feel when you hear the true traditions of Ahlul Bayt Salamullah alayhi. What did the Imam say alayhi salam? فقال أبو عبد الله عليه السلام أجل هو كما ذكرت يا فيض. He told him, O Faid, indeed, whatever you mentioned is true. So the Imam is confirming that yes, there are people out there are people in Kufa, for example, who are narrating contradicting narrations. Then he said, إن الناس أولعوا بالكذب علينا. He said, surely people have ascribed lies to us in abundance. They haven't ascribed one lie or two lies. No, they've ascribed abundant lies to us, Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. So he's telling Al-Faid, the reason you hear people uttering contradicting narrations is because certain people who claim to be our followers are doing what? They're altering our traditions. They're ascribing lies to us. Then he said, إن الله افترض عليهم لا يريد منهم غيره. This is the word that he said according to اختيار معرفة الرجال. إن الله افترض عليهم لا يريد منهم غيره. The Imam told him, surely Allah obligated people to perform one thing. He only wanted them to perform that specific thing or that specific act. Surprisingly, the Imam ﷺ doesn't mention the act that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to perform. The act is what we call mahdoof in this tradition, it's omitted. However, if you look at the context, you can understand what the Imam ﷺ wants to say. The Imam is telling Al-Faid that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted people to perform one thing, and that is to refer to Ahlul Bayt, learn their traditions, understand them, and apply them, without altering their traditions, without changing their traditions, without misinterpreting their traditions purposely. Then he said, وَإِنِّي أُحَدِّثُ أَحَدُهُمْ بِالْحَدِيثِ فَلَا يَخْرُجُ مِنْ عِنْدِي حَتَّى يَتَأَوَّلَهُ عَلَى غَيْرِ تَأْوِيلِهِ. The Imam mentioned a vital problem. He told him, Faid, sometimes I tell these people who claim to be our followers, I tell them a particular narration, and as soon as they leave my house, they misinterpret the tradition willfully. They do this willfully. As soon as they leave my house, they misinterpret the tradition, the narration. وَذَلِكَ أَنَّهُمْ لَا يَطْلُبُونَ بِحَدِيثِنَا وَبِحُبِّنَا مَا عِنْدَ اللَّهِ وَإِنَّمَا يَطْلُبُونَ بِهِ الدُّنْيَا. You might ask, why would anyone purposely misinterpret the words of Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam or the words of Ahlul Bayt salamullah alayhim? The Imam explains. He says, that is because لا يطلبون بحديثنا وبحبنا ما عند الله, because they don't seek to get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through our traditions and through our love. So what do they want from your traditions, O Imam? Why do they claim to be your lovers when they're not true lovers? He says, وَإِنَّمَا يَطْلُبُونَ بِهِ الدُّنْيَا. He says they seek this world. They seek worldly items and or worldly desires through our narrations and through our love. As in, they claim to be lovers of Ahlul Bayt, and they come forth to listen to what Ahlul Bayt say, salamullah alayhim, so that they can what? Acquire worldly items or worldly benefits such as fame, popularity, or the likes. Then he said, وَكُلٌّ يُحِبُّ أَنْ يُدْعَى رَأْسًا. He said, all of these people that misinterpret my traditions willfully, all of them want to become leaders. So what do they want? They want a status. They want a social status. They want fame. They want people to follow them. Then he said, إِنَّهُ لَيْسَ مِنْ عَبْدٍ يَرْفَعُ نَفْسَهِ إِلَّا وَضَعَهُ اللَّهُ. He said, surely any slave of God who exalts himself, meaning who becomes arrogant, who becomes proud, any slave of God who exalts himself will be put down by Allah. وَمَا مِنْ عَبْدٍ وَضَعَ نَفْسَهِ إِلَّا رَفَعَهُ اللَّهُ وَشَرَّفَهُ. Then he said, and any slave who puts himself down for Allah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will exalt him. Allah ta'ala will give him a high status. Then he said the following, the golden word, and all of his words are golden. فَإِذَا أَرَدْتَ بِحَدِيثِنَا. Possibly there's a typo here. Possibly what he said is فَإِذَا أَرَدْتَ حَدِيثَنَا فَعَلَيْكَ بِهَذَا الْجَالِسِ. He told him, if you want to acquire our traditions, if you want to acquire the real traditions of Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salatu was-salam, without any alteration or changes, فَعَلَيْكَ بِهَذَا الْجَالِسِ. Then go to this man who is sitting over there. وَأَوْمَى بِيَدِهِ إِلَى رَجُلٍ مِنْ أَصْحَابِهِ. The Imam pointed to a particular person who was present, a particular individual amongst his companions who was present. فسألت أصحابنا عنه. Mufaddal says, so I asked our companions, who is that man to whom the Imam pointed? فقالوا زرارة ibn أعين. They said, it is Zuraarah, son of A'yun. May Allah bless his soul. والحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على محمد وآله الطاهرين. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم.